The entrance hall has served as the primary entrance for the White House since the time of Thomas Jefferson up until Theodore Roosevelt in 1902. Presidents have used the entrance hall for different purposes. In Jefferson's time, he used it to display different pieces and artifacts that were sent back from the Corps of Discovery by his secretary Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. In Jackson's time, he actually used the space to put out a mammoth cheese that was gifted to the White House in 1835. There's a series of columns that separate the entrance hall from the cross hall. You'll see dates on the floor. These mark important renovations, reconstructions, and rebuildings in White House history. The first is 1792. The cornerstone was laid for the first White House on October 13, 1792. The next one is 1817. This was after the rebuilding of the White House after the British burned the building during the War of 1812. The next date is 1902. This was a modern renovation that was carried out by Theodore Roosevelt with the assistance of McKim, Mead & White, a very famous architectural firm out of New York. And finally, 1952, the last major renovation in White House history carried out by Harry Truman, which took 3.5 years between 1948 and 1952. Truman ordered that a new presidential seal be installed above the doorway of the Blue Room. The gold eagle leg piano in the entrance hall was a gift of Steinway & Sons in 1938 to the Franklin Roosevelt White House. The 1938 Steinway is still used today for White House concerts and primarily by the United States Marine Band, which is the accompanying band for the President and First Lady of the United States. One of the most famous portraits in the Cross Hall is the Aaron Schickler portrait of John F. Kennedy. Schickler was chosen to be the artist for both President Kennedy and former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy, and their portraits were completed in 1970. President Kennedy wasn't alive to be part of the process. You see that portrait of Kennedy deep in thought, contemplating. Now, the only time that Mrs. Kennedy ever returned to the White House was to see her and her husband's portraits. President Nixon and First Lady Patricia Nixon invited them to see the finished portraits in February 1971. They were unveiled to the public, and President Kennedy's portrait has stayed in the Cross Hall and the entrance hall ever since.